What is the difference between collective bargaining for different employee groups? There is not one difference, there are many. In Germany, just as in other countries around the world, aviation companies are facing different employee groups represented by different unions. Even within employee groups, there are several unions which might negotiate. For the cabin crew, there's a separate union only for cabin crew members. At the same time, the general service sector union Verdi is also negotiating for these employees. Also, the ground staff and the technicians are represented by this union. The pilots have their own union, Vereinigung Cockpit, which only represents pilots. In addition, also other companies, just as the airports themselves or the air traffic companies, do have their own employee groups and are not covered by collective bargaining agreements of the aviation companies themselves. The differences in negotiations are mainly driven by the history of employee groups and their respective negotiation power. For example, cockpit pilots do have a huge impact on with strikes leading up to a potential shutdown of operations if only a few pilots go on strike. They also impact other employee groups in case of a strike, especially during vacations. Also, air traffic controllers do have a big impact on the operations if they go on strike. Furthermore, especially pilots have their own understanding coming from history in terms of their position within an aviation company. On the other hand, ground staff employees do more refer to other ground staff companies or the airport employees, which leads to different negotiations. In addition, this group is much larger and much bigger than the pilots, so it's harder to organize strikes there. Relevant interdependencies need to be kept in mind by the employer when negotiating with different unions for different employee groups. The employer has to keep in mind that any offer to one employee group will be taken up by the other employee group and used in these negotiations. Just to give you an example, if you offer the pilot union an inflation one-time payment of 3,000 euros, this is a rather small amount looking at the high salaries of pilots. At the same time, such offer would be a big compromise for in a ground staff negotiation, as 3,000 euros might be one monthly salary of a ground staff employee. In addition, the term of the collective bargaining agreements for all employee groups need to be kept in mind. The operations need to be saved, which is why an aviation company will have the main focus on not having negotiations and risk of strikes throughout the entire year. At the same time, aviation companies would like to avoid having the end of all collective bargaining agreements at the same time, because this could lead to more or less a general strike of all employee groups at the same time. A current example is the agreement concluded with the pilot union Vereinigung Cockpit recently at Lufthansa. This has a term until end of 2026, leading to 3.5 years of safety and safe operations within this employee group.